Yo, what up? It's your man Danger Dan, and I return with the next tier list. Danger's strength tier list series, and third on the list we got Bleach. So, I had talked about this tier list in the last video before. Basically, I've already done this, as you can see. I explained everything. I think I did it pretty well. Just to find out that my microphone was on, but there was no sound going through it. It wasn't receiving any sound, so the whole fucking video was ruined, and I couldn't upload it. Checking now to make sure everything was working because I'm paranoid about everything now. But this is a tier list on Bleach based off how strong the characters are, in my opinion. Just like the last two tier lists, the tiers for this are the same. You got triple S, double S, S, A, B, C, D, and purgatory. Just triple S being cream of the crop, top dogs. Nobody is really seeing them because they are really strong, but still balanced. Double S being those that are right under triple S. They are very strong under normal circumstances. They wouldn't lose to anyone in the S tier or below. S tier is kind of the average tier for Bleach because they power creep so often. So I would say S tier being average. A tier is slightly below average. The characters that they want you to think are strong, but honestly aren't. They would be strong in certain scenarios because Bleach is all about matchups, more so than any other anime. B tier being just side characters, like they were there, but they were mostly like in a fight for maybe like 1 or 2 panels. C tier being fucking absolutely just pointless characters. They've been in the series since the beginning, but you have to assume they're strong because of their position, but they haven't actually had any significant fights. D tier being just fucking useless characters, and purgatory being characters who are in the show but they didn't actually fight. And then we got Yachiru and Vanishing Point here because they aren't real. Right above triple S, you noticed it, you saw it correctly. We got the fucking bullshit tier, which is exactly how it sounds. And then we got the tier for Juhobak because he is in his own tier. It's not even fucking, it shouldn't even be a discussion. Don't mind all these characters down here. I didn't use all of them. I meant to grab these niggas. Hold on. I meant to grab the Vizards just because they actually showed up in the last arc, even though they didn't fucking do anything of significance. They were there. Nell was there too, so I guess by that perspective, I would have to take her. Almost forgot about Lisa. Yeah. Okay. Right, so the rest of these characters down here, movie characters, filler arc characters, characters from older arcs. I could have sworn I already had this nigga. Characters from older arcs, because like I said, Bleach, they do power creep. Like every arc, they do power creep. Power creep meaning that you release. What's a good way to describe it? So power creep is basically when you have a character that can do certain things and nobody else can do those things, but then you start to introduce new characters that can do what that character was doing before, and it makes that character weaker because they're doing what that character was doing originally, but they're improving on it, of course. So that's power creep, basically, in case you didn't know. Yeah, I think that's all for the explanations. Leave a like on the video if you enjoy it, if you've been following the tier list series. Comment if you got any opinions that you want to share, and subscribe to the channel if you new and want to keep up with everything that's going on. So because everything is already placed, this is probably going to be this is going to be pretty streamlined, and I'm just going to honestly just like run through this just like pretty quick, just because I've already done this. Let me just place these guys real quick. Okay. Right, so I'm gonna start from the bottom, go to the top, because the characters at the top actually have explanations while the characters at the bottom don't. Purgatory, so we got what is it, Akon, we got the Vanishing Point, Yachiru, Ryuken, and Ukitake. So Akon, he was the lieutenant for the research division. He has not ever had a fight. I don't even think he has a fucking Zanpakuto. He's just there. The Vanishing Point, he was not real. He was a figment of Remy's imagination. So, like, I don't even see how I could place him in the strength tier when he doesn't actually exist. Yachiru was the same. She doesn't actually exist, even though she's been in the series from the beginning. We're not even about to get into the terrible inconsistencies in the writing of Bleach. This isn't what that's about. But Yachiru, she wasn't real. She was also a figment of Kenpachi's imagination. Just like the Vanishing Point was. Funny enough, they fought each other, and neither of them were real, but they could interact with each other. Whatever. Like Ryuken, who's Uryu's father. Now it is implied that he is strong, but there's no proof. It's just implied. If we were going with what they want you to believe, he would be up here with Ishin in Double S. But Ishin actually at least drew his fucking sword and had one fight. Ryuken had none, and it's all hearsay. And then we got Ukitake. He's the captain of the 13th Division. Absolutely fucking useless character. I'm not saying anything more than that. D tier. Just all of these characters are irrelevant. Hanataro, irrelevant. Ganju, irrelevant. Orihime, irrelevant. This nigga, I don't even remember his fucking name because he's that irrelevant. You don't need to remember his name either. Next. C tier. We got Nanao, useless. Isane, useless. Iba. I actually am going to put Iba in Purgatory. I don't know why he's in. No, he did fight Ikaku in the very first arc, even though there was no winner to that fight, and it was a pointless fight. Whatever, I'll throw him in there. They had the nerve to make him the captain of the 9th Division in the time skip. Or rather, after the time skip. This nigga is like, I don't even know who he is. I know who he is, but I don't know who he is. Anyway, next. Izuru, Rangiku, Momo, and Omaida. All four of these characters are fucking useless. Next, A tier. Chojuro, he was the lieutenant for the 1st Division. Useless. He never actually had a fight. You can assume that he's strong. Well, he did have a bit of an interaction with Ichigo. Actually, no, Chojuro's in Purgatory. I'm tripping. Like I said, when it comes to Bleach, a lot of these characters are their strength is based off hearsay because for writing. So we have to assume that a lot of these characters are strong just because of their positions, and yeah, just because of their positions and their titles and things like that. But a lot of the characters in this series haven't actually had a fight, even though they're strong. Chojuro being a good example. After he died, they claimed he was one of the strongest lieutenants. Apparently, he was strong enough to be a captain, but he chose not to be. So that was all, again, hearsay. But he didn't actually get shown fighting. All he got shown was getting clapped. Every time they showed him, which was twice, he got clapped. He got clapped by Ichigo, and he got clapped off screen by the Stern Ritter. Like, I don't feel right putting him anywhere other than Purgatory, because then I would have to put Ukitake higher, because he's strong based off hearsay. Ukitake is supposed to be as strong as Shinsui. And you see Shinsui is in the bullshit tier. Ukitake, by reputation, would be in that tier. But by practicality, no. They haven't shown anything. Yumi Chika, he had one fight where he actually showed what he could really do. It was against Cool Horn. His ability is pretty cheap, but he doesn't ever use it. And he won't use it unless no one can see him. It's like, they come up with really stupid reasons to like nerf characters in Bleach. So he's A tier. He actually should be lower than A tier. But because I know he would smoke all of these niggas and these niggas, then yeah. Hiyori, she's one of the visits. By that, you would assume she's strong. She was a lieutenant back in the day, so she's at least the strongest lieutenant. But she's like, I don't think she's ever had a one-on-one fight. She's kind of just there. Uryu. So, they try to make us think Uryu is as strong as Ichigo. He's not. I don't care what, like, the proof is in the pudding. He's not. He has a busted ability. that only works in certain situations, and outside of that, he did nothing but get absolutely demolished by Hashwell. So I don't really, and the funny thing is that even after he used his ability on Hashwell and turned the fight around, Hashwell turned the fight around again. So the tables were turned, and then Hashwell turned him back. So Uryu did nothing but get clapped. He did shoot the arrow that ended up turning off Juha's ability, but anybody with a fucking bow could have shot that arrow. So yeah, anyway, Ikaku. Mashiro, she's a visit, whatever. Shuei, Sun, Millerose, and Apache. For some reason, they survived, and they were in Hueco Mundo, and they fought this nigga. He smoked them, and yeah. And then Chad, one of Ichigo, he's a part of Ichigo's crew, just like Uryu and Orihime. He does literally nothing in the last arc. Now real quick, the reason this tier list is based solely off the final arc is because the final arc changed pretty much the entire series as far as we know it when it comes to how strong characters are. Characters we thought were strong ended up looking really trash, and characters that we thought were trash, they made them look strong like for one fight, and then that would be it. Ikaku being one of those characters, Hachigen being one of those characters, Mashiro being one of those characters. Now, almost all of these characters in A tier looked like they were strong enough to be S tier at a point. If the final arc never came out, then these characters here would be S tier because of what they did in the Fate Karakura Town arc, where they actually got to fight and show off their abilities. But in the final arc, these niggas were nothing but throwaway. Like, they were literal trash, okay? This nigga here, Yumichika, he went from being someone who you think would be relevant to being completely and totally irrelevant. Him and Ikaku, they were both the same. These niggas were getting tossed around by Stern Ritter like fucking virgins in a goddamn prison, okay? They did nothing. They did nothing. These niggas existed just to be cannon fodder, and it's crazy because they were important characters at a time. Which is why the tier list is based off of the final arc, because they completely just demolished certain characters' reputations, and unfortunately we gotta hold that because the final arc is canon. Nemu's a good example. Now, Nemu would be purgatory. She should be in purgatory, but in the last arc, it turns out that apparently she's really godlike, and it's just like, where was this strength at before? Apparently, it was never needed. Apparently, Mayuri never needed her to use it until the final arc when she did use it, right? So power creep exists in Bleach, and not only does power creep exist, but the author apparently has fucking amnesia and completely forgets when certain characters did certain things. Anyway, S tier, moving right along. So the majority of S tier is the Stern Ritter, or rather are the Stern Ritter. Everybody that was outside the Elite Four, everybody that did nothing impressive other than Baz, of course, and the captains, and yeah. So let me see. Let me make sure I got this right. So Rukia was able to kill Asnot, but if Byakuya didn't come and help her, she wouldn't have been able to beat him. So I don't know if she actually would have been able to do anything by herself against any of these niggas. Let me make sure I got this right. I would put you slightly in the back because this nigga got torched by Ichigo. Yorichi's brother is here. Yushiro. Nell didn't do anything. She was there, but she didn't do anything. So actually, I don't even know if I could put her in S tier. She literally didn't do anything. In that case, I would have to put Grimmjow in it too, because Grimmjow got clapped by Askin. Yeah, so Nell's in purgatory. You would assume Nell is stronger than Grimmjow because she said it. She said that she was stronger than him, and Grimmjow fought Askin, even though he got fucking clapped. He still fought him. Alright, yeah. I should amend that. I'm not putting the zombies in here either. So, yeah. Anyway. So in S tier, we have every Stern Ritter. Right? This is pretty much all of them. Bambi, Asnot, Mask. Right. So, like I was saying, we got Bambi, we got Asnot, we got Mask, we got BG9, we got Kang, we got fucking Weisel, we got lame ass Lil Toto, Got Robert. We got Pepe. We got Meninas. We got Candace. We got Gigi. Fucking Nana. Yeah. And for the sake of symmetry, this nigga's name is Opie. So all the Stern Ritter that I just named, all of the ones you see here, aside from I don't think he was a Stern Ritter. Well, technically they're all Stern Ritter. Well, no, not technically. Well, yeah, technically they're all Stern Ritter. I guess you would say he was just a Quincy. But all of these niggas smoked all of these niggas. I mean, it was like, all right, so I put Toshiro in double S, even though he also got smoked. That was just because Endgame, he actually wouldn't have gotten smoked. But anyway, so these niggas, they all had the same abilities, where rather they all had the same general abilities. Their gimmick that they were trying to work at first was that they could steal Bankai. So they said that the reason they were stronger than the captains was because they could steal Bankai, right? So after they got around the Bankai stealing problem, after they completely destroyed Soul Society the first time, I mean completely, it wasn't even close. Feel me? It really wasn't even close. It was like a goddamn toddler stepping in the ring with Mike Tyson, and he's blind, and Tyson is blind and can't see who he's fighting, so he's not gonna hold back, and he's gonna punch that fucking baby's head off. It's not even gonna be fair. Feel me? The baby won't even know what's going on. It was just like that. Imagine you at home and you sleep, and I mean knocked out, and you having a good sleep, you're having a good dream. Next thing you know, you get some cold water splashed in your face, right? You get cold water splashed in your face, it makes you wake up because it's fucking freezing, and you're probably gonna wake up in a panic. And then after you wake up from that cold water splash in your face, it turns out that you got a bucket of water dumped on you, and then somebody just dropped an electrical appliance in your bed. So not only did you just get woken up by fucking cold water, but then you got electrocuted, and you were completely and totally off your guard because you were asleep. That's what happened to these niggas, or at least that's how it looked. These niggas was asleep just completely and totally, and apparently these Quincy come through and just have these niggas spreading it left and right. It was actually really annoying how inconsistent it was. It was just annoying. Anyway, so I'm not gonna go into what each of these niggas could do because like none of them were important. They were important for maybe like 20 chapters, and the reason I say that they stopped, really the reason I say they weren't important anymore is because Juha, he had this ability where he could take all of their powers away, because apparently he was the one who gave them their powers, and he could take their powers away, and when he took their powers away, they died. So none of them who actually lost. Bambi lost to Komamura because he had this weird ass transformation that didn't make any fucking sense, and he wasn't able to use it against anyone else. It was really useless. Asnot lost to Rukia after he originally destroyed Byakuya. I mean, clapped up. Mask, he beat Kensei, Rose, Renji, Hisagi, and I think he beat Ikaku and Yumichika. He was just wrecking shit when he showed up. BG9, he beat Soifon pretty easily. Kang, he beat Toshiro after he stole the Bankai. So the ones who actually stole Bankai and used it were Asnot, BG9, yeah, and Kang. They were the only ones who actually used the Bankai they stole, right? So the Bankai stealing was their original gimmick. It was just like, oh yeah, they steal Bankai because they're afraid of Bankai. That was a lie. They were not afraid of Bankai. There was actually no reason for them to steal Bankai because they never needed it. It was actually really fucking stupid. So after they managed to all take back their Bankai, the ones that got them stolen, guess what the Stern Ritter did? They were just like, oh, cool. We are actually glad y'all did that, so now we can use our abilities. So apparently they have this install they all do is called Volstang. It's basically just Super Saiyan for them. And they couldn't use their Volstangs the first time they invaded Soul Society because the Bankai that they stole were getting in the way. That was the excuse that they came up with. So once they took back their Bankai, it didn't matter. It literally didn't matter. The fights didn't change. Everyone who was losing before continued to lose. And it was actually worse because once they went into their Volstang, it was just like, oh, so you mean that y'all niggas were always stronger than us? Awesome. That's why every Stern Ritter is above every captain that you see in S tier. These two niggas right here, Kensei and Rose. Shinji as well. But Shinji, for some strange reason... Anyway. I know I'm leaving a lot of my thoughts unfinished, and that's just because I'm trying to avoid getting too frustrated while I'm talking about this. Because this shit pisses me the fuck off. You don't understand. You really don't understand. You really don't. This shit makes me so fucking mad, bro. So, Kensei and Rose. Now, every Stern Ritter is a Quincy, right? It works in Bleach. You got Quincy, you got Quincy, Soul Reapers, Hollows. Those are pretty much like the major powers. Humans, of course, but anyway. Shinigami beats Hollow. Hollow beats Quincy. Quincy does not. Well, apparently, according to the last arc, Quincy beats Shinigami. But Hollow beats Quincy, right? Because Quincy's originally are human. And Hollows are actually toxic to Quincy. Any amount of Hollow Retsu is toxic to a Quincy. Okay? Any amount. The weakest Hollow could take down the strongest Quincy if they got a clean hit. Because even if they manage to kill the Hollow, the Quincy will still die. Because once they get infected by a Hollow, there's no turning that around. That's what happened to Ichigo's moms. That's how she died. Right? Now, Rose and Kensei and Shinji are visits. Just like Love, just like Lisa, just like Mashiro, Hachigen, and Hiyori. I would actually have to put Lisa in A tier because she was also a lieutenant. She's stronger than Hiyori though. Everybody's stronger than Hiyori. So they were all the rage in the last arc, right? All the rage. I mean, all of it. Everybody thought that these niggas were the coolest thing to come out of Bleach. Now, Visit means they can put on hollow masks and they can mix in their Retsu with hollow Retsu. They can basically become half hollow. Yeah, you heard that right. So, if they could do that, you would think that they would be able to smoke all of these Stern Ritter that were completely and totally shitting on the rest of Soul Society. They would be the X Factor because they could put their masks on and all of a sudden all of their attacks would basically be poison to Quincy. So none of the Quincy would want to fight them. And they wouldn't be able to steal their Bankai because if they did, they would also take that hollowification. And that would kill them as well because the hollow Retsu is toxic to them. So you would think that the visitors would be really important in this arc. I have news for you. No, this isn't news because I mentioned this earlier. The nigga who writes Bleach has amnesia. Has actual short-term memory loss and long-term amnesia, which is a terrible fate to have, especially when you're an author, which would make you think, why the fuck are you not getting help? So I swear this nigga just forgot that they were visits. He forgot the whole visit commodity because he didn't forget the hollow commodity. Because they actually used hollowification to take back the Bankais that were stolen from them. And then they hollowified those Bankais. And then they managed to all get like one good clean hit on the nigga they were fighting. It didn't really matter in some cases. But the point is that it wasn't forgotten. They used it. They just used it wrong. So these niggas you would think would be stronger. But they aren't. Now, naturally, they aren't any stronger than the average captain. They don't seem to be. But when they put their masks on, they get a lot stronger. It's an install. It's going to increase your strength. It doesn't matter if it's temporary. So they had installs and they had Bankai. So they used their Bankai when they fought Mask, but they didn't use the install. And it's funny because this nigga Kensei showed up, he pops it off on Mask, and then he has the nerve to say, I'm not wasting time. I don't waste time with my enemies the way my subordinate does. His subordinate being Hisagi, who was completely fucking useless in the last arc. He was just fodder. Every time he showed up, he was getting smoked. That was the only reason why he was there. Every time he showed up, he was getting smoked. And he used to be one of the coolest characters in the series. But his character got completely and totally wrecked. So Kensei, he talking all this shit about how he gonna rock it off on Mask immediately, right? So he goes Bankai at the very start, but he doesn't put his mask on. Now, they know that these niggas are Quincy. This isn't one of those things where it's like, oh, they didn't know that the mask would work. No. Their masks are more important to them than their swords. That's how the visits were originally portrayed. Their entire gimmick was the fact that they could put on hollow masks and they could get hollow Retsu. Ichigo could do the same thing. But they just didn't do it. It just didn't happen. And they all ended up getting fucking creamed. Anyway. The problem with Bleach is the inconsistency in the writing, the inconsistency in power levels. The inconsistency is it runs rampant. Feel me? So now we got Soifun, Yushiro, Nemu. I spoke about Nemu. She went from being completely useless to apparently being extremely important. So she can burn off pieces of her soul, and she does that to gain like massive power. So when Mayuri was fighting Pernitas, he was going to die, and then she saved him. Not only did she save him, but she hit Pernitas hard enough to completely obliterate him. Granted, he recovered, but she was able to hit him hard enough, and she was able to move faster than he could react to. This was something that no one else would have been able to pull off. Granted, it was only one hit, and it wasn't sustainable power, because again, she's burning off her soul, and she ended up getting clapped anyway. But if she were to use that power against anyone else, if you don't have a healing factor, she kills you in one hit, unless you actually fast enough to react, which you probably won't be, because she was looking at Pernitas, and in the next panel she was through him, and his body was just in pieces, just all over the fucking place. But he had a busted ass healing factor. So even though she damn near disintegrated the nigga, there were still pieces of him left, so that was enough for him to come back. But that display of strength of hers was way more impressive than anything any of these fucking clowns did in the last arc. I promise you. OP's here. Like I said, he was the first Stern Ritter that they introduced. Ichigo fucking and like just crushed him. He was strong though, but he was only strong because we hadn't seen anyone else yet. And Grimjow is from the past. He's from the arc before this one. Because the Fullbring arc doesn't exist. You can at me on that. He's from the arc before this one, the Huecamundo arc. He was important for however long he was important for. But they brought him back into the last arc for no reason whatsoever. There was literally no reason to bring him back. I think they just thought people really liked him, and people might have been wondering what happened to him. But I promise you, nobody was. And yeah, got Komamura, who I mentioned before. He's the captain of the 7th Division. He had his moment against Bambi, but that was it. And then he was just gone. He was just gone after that. But before he had his moment against Bambi, all he did was get smoked. This nigga is a gag character, I promise you. Love is like, we know Love is captain level. He has a mask, he's a visit, just like these 3 that I mentioned. He was in the last arc for maybe like 2 chapters. I'm so tired of talking about this S tier already. Like, now that I'm actually looking at this list, it's just like, it's making me so upset. All right, next we got Double S. So some of these characters are actually respectable and might get more of an explanation instead of just getting written off. So we got the Zero Division. Now, these niggas are up here just because they have to be, because the Zero Division is supposed to be the strongest of the strong in the Soul Society. But the only ones who actually displayed any levels of adequate strength were Oetsu and Ichibe. The rest of these niggas didn't do a goddamn thing but lose. That's all they did. They all got fucking one-shot by Lily. It was embarrassing, really. What are their names? You know what? I don't know. Anyway. So, yes. The Zero Division was supposed to be strong. There were 5 people in the Zero Division. There were these 3. I remember her name, Senjomaru. They call her that because she had 10,000 hands. This was the hot spring dude with the pompadour. I forget his name. Trust me, it's not important. And this was the cooking queen. Again, these names aren't important. The reason why I say these names aren't important is because when you see them in the series, you only see them for the one time, and then they get killed off, and then they do not come back. They aren't spoken about again. They are no longer relevant. Okay? They don't even have fights. This is what I'm saying. These niggas are all talk. Bleach is just it's just all hearsay. It's just all rumors. It's all about your reputation. You don't actually have to put in any work. Feel me? These 3 were supposed to be relevant. They all got embarrassed by this nigga Weisel. Right now, he didn't actually fight them. He doesn't actually have an offensive ability. His ability was real simple. His shrift was W, the wind or the wind. I always felt like it was the wind, but it could be the wind. It's one of the two, however you want to word it. Basically, you can't hit him. He can just he bends space. or rather he can bend objects. Not so much bend space, but it kind of looks like he's bending space. So if you swing a sword at him, the sword is going to bend away from him. If you try to punch him, your arm is going to bend away from him. You can't touch him. Okay? Now, Senjomaru, she figured out a way around his ability, which was actually like, I wouldn't call it creative. It was pretty simple. So she's a seamstress. So all she did was just like sew him up some clothes because he couldn't, like, apparently he couldn't send away the attacks from the inside. So that was how she beat him. And after it took all three of them just to deal with him, and he was just there for defense, right? Now the Elite Four showed up, and all they did was cage them because they couldn't actually fight them. Oetsu could fight them, but nobody else could. Senjomaru, she got shot in the head by Lily. This Cooking Broad, she got shot down by Lily off screen. They didn't even show it. This is how important they are. They got bodied off screen. That's how important they are. But these niggas are the Zero Division. They've been talking about the Zero Division for so long, and we all were like really looking forward to them. And not all of them were disappointing. Just these three. But they still in double S because they're in the Zero Division. So you have to assume that they're strong. They did fight. And they did get smoked by niggas that were way above them. Or at least niggas that they should have been above. And because of that, they actually get placed. But these niggas are just inconsistent. Next we got Byakuya, captain of the 6th Division. Now Byakuya is stronger than the average captain. Actually way stronger. So originally he got fucking clapped by Asnot. It was really embarrassing for him because Asnot made him look like he didn't know his fucking left ass cheek from his right hand, right? And he killed him. That was officially the story, was that he died. And that would have made for a better story, honestly, if they actually started killing off characters and didn't bring them back, because Bleach they killed off a lot of characters in the final arc, but they all came back. Only a couple of them actually stayed dead. Most of the characters that they killed off came back. Byakuya, so he got shipped off to the Soul King's palace, just like Ichigo, just like Renji, and just like Rukia. And they all got trained by the Zero Division. It's actually really funny because Byakuya got trained by the Zero Division, came back and was far more impressive than almost every single member of the Zero Division. Byakuya was flexing so fucking hard on every, you know what? Yeah. Byakuya was flexing so fucking hard during that final arc. He didn't use his full power a single time. He used it maybe once. Yeah, he only actually released his Bankai against this nigga Gerard. Byakuya was smoking Stern Ritter left and right for free with just his Shikai. The same niggas who were bodying everybody else, the same nigga that bodied him, he completely reversed the gap. Completely. And honestly, I don't know if Asnot was ever really stronger than him. I'm not sure. But the point is that Asnot was the one who killed him. Rukia was the one who killed Asnot. But Rukia wouldn't have been able to pull that off without Byakuya, because Asnot had actually infected her with his fear, and she was about to kill herself. And then Byakuya came and saved her. And then Asnot was all hype. He was just like, oh shit, Byakuya, so you finally came to fight me. And Byakuya is just like, nah, you are no longer worth my time. And it was just like, what? You don't want revenge? He goes, nah, my little man gonna avenge me. That's what he told Asnot. My little man gonna avenge me. Right? Imagine a nigga kills you. You come back to life. You stronger than him now, so you can actually, you know, get your run back, and you refuse. Byakuya didn't even want his run back. He was just like, nah, Rukia got this. I was so confused by that, but at the same time, it was still so impressive. It's just like, wow, he's so above revenge. He doesn't even want revenge. He doesn't even want his run back. His honor is apparently not at all stained by the fact that he lost, because he knows that he's way stronger than he is now. He's way stronger than he was then. You know? So yeah, Byakuya, he was smoking all of them. Byakuya beat Nana. He beat Pepe. He beat Robert. He beat, I think he was the one who beat BG9. He wasn't killing them though, which was just like, I don't even know what the point of that was. Oh, right, I know what the point of it was. It's for the inconsistent writing. Anyway, Byakuya might be triple S. I'm not sure. I don't think he's triple S. I think he's like right there though. You know, I think he's right there. Next we got Unohana. So the funny thing about Bleach, this is so fucking funny. You see Yachiru here? Now, she's not real. Apparently, this is the real Yachiru. So, real quick. Unohana, she was the captain of the 4th Division, right? The 4th Division was strictly healers. They did not fight. Now, in the final arc where everything was retcon, it turns out she was the original Kenpachi. Now, Kenpachi is not a name, but a title. It means the strongest. It's the title that you give the strongest. She was the original Kenpachi. Apparently, she was originally a murderer whom was just like officially a part of the government. She was basically a hired gun. She was a part of the original Gotei 13, which Yamamoto had created. And apparently, the original Gotei 13 was far and above the current Gotei 13. As you might expect, it's always like that in anime. They always talk shit about how the original generation is stronger than the current generation. Naruto had the same thing. That shit is mad annoying to me, but whatever. So Unohana, she was a part of that. So she met Zaraki when he was a kid. Apparently, he fucking beat her in a fight as a child, even though she was the Kenpachi. She lost to him as a child. And then they don't explain what happens in between, but she somehow ends up becoming the captain of the 4th Division. She somehow ends up becoming a pacifist, and she no longer kills. Now, we find out she's the Kenpachi because her and Kenpachi end up, or rather, not to avoid any confusion, her and Zaraki have to fight each other in order for the title of Kenpachi, because apparently 2 Kenpachis cannot exist at the same time. Let me explain real quick. You see this character, Unohana, that I'm talking about? She's been in the series since the beginning. You see Zaraki? He's been in the series since the beginning. They have literally both been in meetings together. They've been in panels together. They've had conversations every now and then. But suddenly, one of them has to die, and that's because they both can't be alive at the same time. But they've both been alive at the same time for over 100 years. Yeah. You see, when you hear what the scenario is, and then when you say it yourself, you realize how fucking stupid it sounds. Like, I realize how dumb this sounds now that I'm sitting here talking about it, and it's upsetting me because I feel dumb for talking about something dumb, because I used to love Bleach. Feel me? Bleach was my favorite series. Ichigo was my favorite main character. It wasn't even close. And then this fucking final arc came out, and it was just like, what have I been reading this whole time? Feel me? If the final arc would have never dropped, if the Fullbring arc would have never been thought of, Bleach would not be getting dragged, and it wouldn't be getting disrespected the way it gets disrespected these days. Feel me? Bleach was originally part of the Holy Trinity. It was Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece. These were the 3 cash cows for Shonen Jump, alright? You don't understand. People don't remember Bleach because, like, Bleach got overshadowed by all these new animes that are out right now. But Bleach was, like, literally number 2 or 3 series in the world. Feel me? You don't understand how popular Bleach is in Japan. Now, I've never been to Japan, but the internet exists. But when Bleach was at its peak, Bleach was more popular in Japan than Naruto and One Piece. And it wasn't just the series. Like, Bleach, it was damn near a fucking cultural bomb. Feel me? They had stores. Of course, they got merch, but they had stores where they were like, so you know how Naruto, they have the ramen shop over downtown, and in Japan they actually have like real Naruto, One Piece, Dragon, like they have anime themed restaurants in Japan where they basically sell the food as best as they can recreate it in real life from the series. And that shit sounds awesome to me. It's one of the things that I want to check out when I go to Japan. But they had that for Bleach. I don't know if they still do, but they had that. They had that. They had the movies. They had fucking albums. They had light novels. Feel me? They were making games for almost every platform. Most of those games were trash, but they were still making them. And they were making and Bleach had a movie like every year. Every year a movie was coming out for Bleach. Maybe every 6 months. It might have been shorter than that. But Bleach was major. My nigga, it was major. And then this final arc came out. First it was the Fullbring arc. The Fullbring arc, it completely destroyed Bleach's reputation as an anime because they ended the anime with the Fullbring arc, and the Fullbring arc is so trash that I can't actually logically figure out how someone wrote that shit, sent it to their editors, and their editors were like, yeah, this is it. There's no way. Clearly those niggas wanted to see you fail, because if they didn't, they would have told you this is fucking terrible. Rip this up, shred it, and do it over. And don't you dare come this way with this fucking porous work again. Right? That didn't happen. They wanted to see you fail. So they was just like, yeah, telling you yes to everything. People who want to see you fail will tell you that everything you're doing is valid, whether it is or isn't. This is a fact of life. People who want to see you fail will constantly butter you up, and they will constantly feed you bullshit because they don't want to see you doing well, so they're going to tell you that everything you're doing is right. The people that care about you, the people that really fuck with you, the people that probably piss you off are the people who always got something to say about what you're doing, because those are the niggas that want to see you succeed. Your parents, your siblings, you may be lucky enough to have friends that always call you on your bullshit. But the people who really care about you are the people who get up in your face and they tell you that you fucking up when you fucking up. But when someone sees you fucking up and they just propagate that, how can you continue to fuck with people like that? This is what this series is amounted to. I would have fired every fucking one of my editors if they would have allowed me to put this out. Every single one of them. I would have fired all of them. I would have been like, there's no way y'all niggas thought this was cool. How is it that the whole world thinks this is shit, but y'all niggas told me that this was alright? Y'all told me that y'all like this. I was like, oh, bro, we did. Nah, there's no way. There's no way you a professional editor with years of experience under your belt. You've probably seen all manner of stories. And you probably dealt with all manner of authors, illustrators, what have you. There is no way you don't know a good story from a bad one. There's just no way. There's just no way. Anyway, sorry for that rant. The point is that, yeah, so we found out she was the original Kenpachi. So they had to fight. It was a really stupid fight. But she's clearly stronger than the other captains, because they confirmed that, you know, the old guard was stronger than the current guard, and she's a member of the old guard. And Bleach isn't the series where you get weaker because you haven't fought or because you haven't been using your power. They don't use that. They don't use that in Bleach. So yeah, she will be double S because of that. She got a Bankai. She's the original Kenpachi, so she originally was considered the strongest. Niggas called her a murderer, apparently. And everybody was afraid of her. Apparently the only person that could deal with her was Yamamoto. So yeah, she's valid for that. But anyway, next we got Ishin Kurosaki. He's Ichigo's father. So he's the original captain of the 10th Division before Hitsugaya. He's strong. I do think he's double S because he's, again, from the older guard. He's not from the original Gotei 13, but he's pretty close to it. He has a Bankai. He was important enough to where Aizen wanted to get rid of him personally, not because he had a grudge against him. He just was in the wrong place at the wrong time. But he's pretty valid. We know his Retsu was really, really up there because he was able to maintain the hallway that him and Ichigo had going through the Garganta, so that Ichigo could train, since apparently time moved differently in there. Basically a hyperbolic time chamber. Toshiro. So Toshiro is the current captain of the 10th Division. So I got Toshiro double S because once he got his Bankai back, once he came back to life, because he died. Well, so they say he wasn't actually dead, but Gigi, her ability, her shrift was Z for zombie. She bled on you, she could take control of you. The stronger you were, the more she had to bleed on you. Basically, if you were really strong, you had to ingest her blood. But she could control you. She basically turned you into a zombie. That was what she did to Bambi. So Bambi got clapped by Komamura, and then Gigi turned her into a zombie. Now Gigi is not a girl. This is a guy. So he turned Bambi into a zombie. And as a zombie, all you can do is follow his orders, but you don't feel pain or anything like that, as you know, typical zombie rules. So you basically just become an undead warrior. You can still be killed again if somebody blows off your arms and legs, but you basically become an undead warrior. And he did that to Toshiro off camera, of course. There's no telling when it happened. Toshiro just showed up in a white suit and he was a zombie. It was mad stupid. So when he showed up as a zombie, he was just wrecking shop, as you would expect. He clapped Ikaku because Ikaku was there for some reason. Yumichika was there too. They both got clapped. They would get clapped by him under normal circumstances, so it didn't really matter. But when his Bankai got stolen, he had went back to training his basic swordsmanship, which was what they were trying to show off after he became a zombie. But even though them getting their Bankais back from the Stern Ritter that had stolen them was supposed to be temporary, his Bankai stood with him when he took it back from Kangdu. No explanation, of course. It was just, you got to accept it. And they, of course, more retcons. So originally, his Bankai had a time limit, right? He has these flowers behind him, and when the flowers melt, his Bankai ends. They confirmed this back at the beginning of the Hueco Mundo arc, when he was fighting one of Grimmjow's Fraction. He said that the petals behind his back are the time limit for his Bankai. He said this himself. And everyone says it throughout the series. When the petals evaporate, his Bankai is going to end. So they needed a way to beat this nigga Gerard, and they didn't have one. So what did they do? Pass. RNG. Oh, anyway. Sorry, I got distracted by something minor. So he was a part of the fight. I'll get to I'm gonna get to Gerard real soon. They needed a way to beat Gerard. They couldn't come up with one, of course. So they said, how can we make Toshiro relevant? Because for some reason Toshiro was there. So turns out, when the flowers for his Bankai, which were originally stated to be the time limit, run out, his Bankai doesn't end. His Bankai reaches full maturity. So basically, he reaches full power. It was like, yo, it was such an ass pull that like niggas didn't even really question it. They was just like, all right, whatever. So he becomes an adult because he's a child. And when his Bankai matures or whatever, he becomes an adult and his power jumps up like tremendously. He gets so strong that you could argue he might, like, his just off the power of his sword, because he has the strongest ice and water-based Zanpakuto. Just from the power of that, you could say he might be able to fight Yamamoto. He might be. But yeah, he basically had jumped up super high. Had he used that power when he fought Kang, he would have smoked him. Renji got the same training as Byakuya and Ichigo and Rukia when he went to the Soul King's palace. He got fucking smoked by Mask the first time he saw him, but it wasn't really his fault. And then the next time he saw him, he was the only one who actually got his run back. The next time he saw Mask, it was free smoke. It was too free. And then from there, you would have thought that he was about to just start running around and wrecking shit, but he wasn't actually. After he fought Mask, he was kind of just there in the background. But he did jump up. His Bankai had transformed because, you know, they all got their swords changed when they went to the Royal Palace, and that was pretty much it. But he definitely passed captain level because he was smoking niggas that were smoking captains. So by definition, that would mean he was stronger than the niggas that used to be stronger than him. But Renji's lieutenant of the 6th Division, so Byakuya is his captain. So regardless of the fact that he's on captain level, his captain is still stronger than him. So yeah, I think he's probably just gonna stay a lieutenant. Next, we got Baz. So Baz, he was one of the Stern Ritters. The reason why he's double S is because, for one, he was way more impressive than any other Stern Ritter. He was clearly more important than any other Stern Ritter, and he was the only. Well, Lil Toto survived it as well, and Gigi did too, but that was just because they were hiding. But he was the only one who, like, straight up survived the rapture that Juha had laid down on all the Stern Ritter that weren't in the Elite Four, right? He was the only one who survived. He survived based off willpower alone. And apparently his flames were strong enough to offset Yamamoto's flames, whom was supposed to have the strongest flames in creation. His flames managed to save the lives of he and his allies who tried to attack Yamamoto and got fucking incinerated. Apparently he saved them from that. And yeah, he was just really impressive. He was definitely more impressive than any other Stern Ritter. So I think he would be like bottom double S. Yeah. Because he's not too much stronger than these niggas. You know, he had a Volts thing, but he never actually used it. He ended up getting clapped by Harshwold. So he never actually got to, like, really have his moment. Because the person he lost to was so far above him that even though he had to use all of his power, unfortunately, it didn't fucking matter. And then we got Yoruichi. So I do think she's double S. She's definitely stronger than the typical captain. She has like 3 installs. She showed off all of them when she fought Askin. And if Askin wasn't a terrible matchup for her and wasn't just straight busted, she would have smoked him. And she didn't realize she had to kill him in 1 hit. Nobody did until he told them. Because in Bleach, it doesn't matter what your abilities are, you'll share them with the world. I swear it's an unwritten rule in Bleach that these niggas have to explain exactly how their abilities work. Everybody does it. Everybody. They explain exactly how their abilities work. You do not have to guess. You do not have to figure it out. They will tell you everything that they can do at the very start of the fight. So not having knowledge on your opponent doesn't matter in Bleach because they're going to tell you what they can do. You can count on it. Next, we got Triple S. So Askin, he was a part of the Elite Four. The Elite Four being the 4 Stern Ritter that were directly under Juha. They were the Stern Lictor. That was Gerard, Lily, Hashwalt, Pernitas. I guess you would say the Elite 5 because it was 5 of them. Askin made 5th. Now, originally there were 4 of them, but apparently Askin was the only one because he wasn't originally with them. He was originally down on the ground with the other Stern Ritter, but apparently he got chosen for his ability. His ability is pretty cheap. Basically, his shrift is D for the death dealing. Basically, he can manipulate the lethal dose of any substance that exists. The lethal dose being how much of a substance it takes to kill, a person or an animal, like any living thing. He can manipulate that freely. That is a really cheap ability. Basically, there's a condition to it, of course. He has to ingest whatever it is he wants to manipulate. But that's a chemical ability. It's not a physical thing. It's not something you can block. Feel me? It doesn't matter how strong you are. This is something you'll feel. He has one of those abilities, which is why he's up here in the Triple S. Now, naturally, his physicals aren't all of that. Like he was able to keep up with Kisuke and Yoruichi, but he wasn't able to keep up with Yoruichi until he started to break her down with the poison that he was making her breathe in. And then, of course, when he uses his Volst thing, he no longer has to ingest massive amounts of what he wants to manipulate. He just has to ingest, like any amount that he ingests will meet the condition, right? And then he had another ability, like I mentioned before, where he could also use the lethal dose on himself, but it worked differently when he used it on himself. So if you hit him with an attack, based off how strong the attack is, if it doesn't kill him, his body will adjust to it, and then that attack will no longer work on him. It won't be able to hurt him anymore, right? So Yoruichi had hit him with a really strong attack, maybe her strongest attack, but it wasn't enough to kill him. So since he didn't die, his body adjusted to the dosage of Haretsu. That's how they describe it. His body adjusted to Haretsu, so now she wasn't going to be able to kill him again unless she could come up with a stronger attack, which she wasn't able to do because after she hit him with her strong hit, he started breaking her down with poison and shit. So if you can't kill him, he'll be fine. He's basically a pseudo immortal. If you can't kill him in 1 hit, you can't kill him at all. And he can kill you without even touching you. And then, of course, he had the Gift Ball Deluxe, which is basically, think of it as him expanding his domain in Jujutsu. Once you in the Gift Ball, you're dead. He can just make you breathe in poison. Unidentified poison, of course. But he just makes you breathe in poison. So he has Gift Ball. He had the Gift Ball Deluxe. Because the original, no, he had Gift Ring. That's what it was. Gift Ring basically kills whatever it touches. But it doesn't, work on a full-size person. So he'll basically hit you, like what he did to Kisuke. He hit Kisuke in the eye. And his eye literally just died. Like it was never there. He couldn't even fix it. Well, Kisuke could fix it because, But yeah, he was pretty strong for that. Like, honestly, that ability of his is really cheap. He's a matchup nightmare for anyone. Because he doesn't have to touch you. It doesn't matter if you're stronger than him. If you don't know, like if you can't survive his initial onslaught of poison and shit, you can't kill him. But you can still move fast enough to take him out before he gets that chance. It's been done. Next we got Mayuri. So Mayuri's Triple S, captain of the 12th division. He's Triple S because he's basically, so he's not exactly Batman. He's more like the Nightwing of the series because Kisuke is Batman of the series, but he's more like Nightwing. He always has a plan. He always has a contingency. Always. Now, granted, he needs prep time, but his prep time isn't like normal prep time. His prep time is really cheap. He only needs he needs the shortest amount of time possible to observe something, and he figures out a way to beat it because he already has a bunch of drugs and shit on deck. All right, so the way he fights is he fights chemical, just like Askin. You know, he has a Zanpakuto, he has a Bankai, just like, you know, any other captain. But he is a scientist. So he doesn't actually fight you based off physical strength. He analyzes you, he figures out how your body works, and he comes up with a bunch of drugs and shit that are specifically made for you to help him beat you and to make you suffer in like the worst ways possible. That's how he wins all his fights. And honestly, the only fight he lost in the entire series was to Uryu. And that was back in the first arc. And they only, like, Uryu only beat him because for the, you know, the sake of storytelling. But after that, he didn't lose any fights. He didn't drop any fights. He fought Pernitas. He was the only one. Was he? Let me think. No, he was. He and Shinsui were the only two that fought members of the Stern Lichter one-on-one. Right? Well, I don't think Nemu helping him in the fight counts as him not winning one-on-one, because technically Nemu is like one of his weapons. Feel me? She's like, he invented her. She's an what do you call it? She's a homunculus. So she listens to everything he says, and she would only do what he would say. Granted, she helped him in the fight of her own will, because she saw that he was about to die. But normally, I think you would be able to consider her as part of his equipment. So yeah, I would say he fought Pernitas one-on-one. He figured out how Pernitas' ability worked just from seeing it one time. He figured out a counter around it because he just so happened to already have a counter to it, multiple counters to it. And then he figured out how to kill Pernitas, which was something nobody else would have been able to figure out, because Pernitas had hyper regeneration. Not only did he have hyper regeneration, he also had what do you call it? Hydraulic regeneration. I just made that up. Basically, he had the Hydra type regeneration. If you cut off a part of his body, then that body part will grow another Pernitas. And he'll heal with the part you cut off, and then the part you cut off will grow another Pernitas. So Mayuri had to fight 3 of him, right? And another thing about Pernitas is that, because now we're talking about Pernitas, because Pernitas is right after Mayuri. Pernitas is triple S. So like I said, hyper regeneration. He learned as he fought, right? So his ability was he was connecting his nerves. He would connect his nerves to things, and then he would just tear them apart. That's what his whole thing was. He did it to Kenpachi, and Mayuri was able to figure it out immediately. So aside from the hyper regeneration and the hydraulic regeneration, he was a part of the Elite 5 for Juha. He had a Volstang, and to top it all off, apparently he was quote unquote the left arm of the Soul King. Soul King being God in Bleach. That doesn't mean shit, by the way, but Soul King being God in Bleach. Pernitas was his left arm, and he was a Quincy. So he learned as he fought. Whatever his nerves touched, he would absorb their information, their experience, and their information. So his nerves had originally touched Kenpachi, so his body was catching up to Kenpachi's. Basically, he was learning his speed, his strength. He was acting like Kenpachi. He was getting smarter because he started off really fucking stupid. He was getting smarter as he fought Mayuri, and like he was just a tough fight. Mayuri, the way Mayuri beat him is probably the only way he would have lost. He turned his regeneration against himself. He was like, yeah, so because you regenerate, he killed Nemu, and after he killed her, he started to eat her, right? So Mayuri let him, because apparently that was all a part of his plan. He let him eat Nemu after she fucking roughed him up. And then Nemu also has hyper regeneration. So her regeneration combined with Pernitas's, and apparently he's regenerating too much, and he ended up blown up, and that was pretty much how he died. But that was a very specific way to beat him. I don't know if he would have lost in any other way because he was so stupid. Mayuri had to fight 3 of this nigga at once because he cut off the finger, right? Because he's a giant hand. The way what you see here, he's a giant hand. Mayuri cut off one of his fingers, and the finger grew another hand. And then Pernitas cut off his own finger to show Mayuri that it wasn't a fluke, and then that finger grew another hand. So there were 3 of them that he was fighting. Now Nemu ended up destroying 2 of them, and then the third one was the one that caught her and then ate her, and then that was what ended up killing him. But Pernitas was fucking crazy. He's not in the bullshit tier because he's still fair, because all 5 of these niggas, or rather all 6 of these niggas, make him look fair. They make him look weak, actually. Next we got Zaraki Kenpachi. So we all know him as Kenpachi, even though Unohana is the original Kenpachi. I just didn't want to confuse anybody. We all know him as Kenpachi. Basically, when it comes to physicals, he's the strongest nigga in the series. He's basically the Broly of the series. Think of him like that. He's literally just a berserker. His gimmick is that he can cut through anything. His gimmick is that he's super tough. He doesn't die. No matter how many hits he takes, he won't die. No matter who he fights, he'll just be stronger than them. He's the plot device, or one of the plot devices. So he goes through the entire series, even though he's the captain. Apparently, the excuse they made two excuses, and they retconned both of them. So apparently, he can't hear the voice of his Pakuto because his spiritual pressure is too high, and it drowns it out. It makes sense, right? It doesn't, but whatever. Second is that apparently his sword, like Ichigo's original, is always in its release state. His sword is always in his Shikai, and it's just stuck there because his spiritual pressure is that high, right? So that's two things. The third thing that they that was the original excuses, or rather those are the original excuses. Now the retcon being that apparently his spiritual pressure isn't what was stopping him from hearing his sword. His sword was always there because his sword turned out to be Yachiru, whom was a living, breathing person. Everyone could see her. Everyone could interact with her. She had a sword of her own. And then she just, like, he has his fight with Retsu. He wins after they go through their little dance of her killing him and bringing him back to life. And every time she killed him and brought him back, he was stronger because they couldn't think of anything else. So they gave him the original Saiyan power up, where every time you're near death, you get stronger as long as you recover. That was what they did. She killed him, and every time she killed him, she brought him back to life. And every time she brought him back to life, he was stronger until he was strong enough to kill her. And then it was just like, all right, cool. So now that you have unlocked your true persona, now you can hear your sword talking to you, because, you know, once he quote unquote unsealed himself and remembered who he was, Yachiru just vanished. She just disappeared. And then all of a sudden he could hear his sword, and he learned his sword's name. So all he can do is he can cut through anything. I mean anything. He can literally cut through anything. That's his entire gimmick. And it doesn't matter how strong you are, he will be stronger than you, unless your name is Juha. Right? So Kenpachi was the only one who, when the Stern Ridders originally invaded and they were originally smoking shit, Kenpachi was the only one that didn't get smoked. Right? Here's the inconsistency. So he killed 3 Stern Ritter that will remain nameless. Their pictures aren't even here because he killed them off like that. They didn't show the fights. He just showed up in front of Juha and Hashwal, and he had 3 of these niggas on his back, and they were all dead. For some reason, he brought them there with him. So then he drops them off just to prove, I guess, that he killed 3 of them. He explains how he beat each of them, and the explanation is literally the same every time. Oh, he did something I didn't understand, so I just cut his head off. Oh, she was doing something crazy, so I just cut her throat. Oh, I didn't understand what he was doing, so I just sliced him. It's like, wow. The answer to all life's problems. So then he runs into Juha, and then the next time you see him, Juha got him by the throat. And it's just like, wait a minute. So you mean to tell me that you were the only captain who was capable of defeating Stern Ritters, outside of Yamamoto, of course. He was literally the only captain that was able to defeat a Stern Ritter. And you get smoked by Juha off panel. Apparently, he didn't even touch him. He was like, his clothes weren't dirty or anything, and he had this nigga by the throat. Right? So Juha had designated 5 special war potentials. Basically, the 5 characters whom the story was going to use as plot devices. That was Ichigo, Yamamoto, Kenpachi, Ichibe, and Aizen. Right? These were quote unquote the 5 special war. No, not Yamamoto. Kisuke. Yamamoto was just like, he didn't count. I forgot. Yamamoto was already dead when they introduced this bullshit. So the 5 potential war powers, right? Ichibe, Aizen, Ichigo, Kisuke, and Kenpachi. These were the 5 people who were going to be used in case the story was getting too out of hand, which Bleach is known for. And yeah, that was basically Kenpachi's gimmick. So he got smoked by Juha after smoking 3 Stern Ritter, which is something nobody else did. But then he just gets smoked by the leader. And then apparently he needs to learn the art of killing after that. And Unohana was the one who had to teach it to him because she was the original Kenpachi. And apparently 2 Kenpachis cannot exist at the same time, so they had to fight to the death, even though they have existed for the same time for over a century. Like, every time I repeat this shit, it's just... anyway. Yeah, so he ended up unlocking his Bankai. Once he did, he was able to beat Gerard before he used his Volstang. Once he used his Volstang, it was over. But before that, he was the only one that could actually hurt the nigga. He cut him clean in half. I mean, clean in half. He was so strong that Gerard tried to punch him, and he caught his fist with his teeth and then ripped his arm off with just his teeth. His Bankai is just him getting supercharged. You know, it's just an install. His sword doesn't change. His sword breaks, actually. It's really weird. And then he just gets ridiculously strong. He was apparently as strong as Gerard, but it didn't last because his body couldn't handle the power, of course, which is always the excuse they make with him. Next, we got Kisuke. Kisuke is Batman. With prep time, he could beat anyone in the series. He's proven it. So even though he got laid, even though he didn't lose to Askin, he beat Askin, but he couldn't fight anymore after that. And that was just because they didn't want to use him to solve the problems the way they did before. I swear that's all it was. They didn't want to use him the way they used him before. So they was like, you know what? We'll just let him fight and we'll make sure he gets incapacitated. And then that's the last time you'll see him, because that was the last time we saw him. So Kisuke, he is the smartest nigga in the series by far. He has a plan for everything, and he can genuinely figure out anything. It's like he has a million scenarios in his head going on at one time, and he has a fucking response for each of them. Nothing catches him off guard. Like, legit. Askin kind of surprised him, but it was the first time Kisuke had really fought in centuries. It was the first time he actually fought. Now, granted, when they were trying to suppress Aizen, when he was in the fake Karakura town, him, Ishin, and Yoruichi, that wasn't actually a fight. Feel me? He wasn't actually fighting. He was kind of just like using cover fire for Yoruichi and Ishin. Yoruichi and Ishin were doing all of the work. And when he fought Askin, he finally used his Bankai. So his Bankai makes his Shikai relevant. His Shikai doesn't matter. His Bankai, basically, he can restructure anything he wants. Like, there don't seem to be any upper limits to what he can do with that. Now, all in all, you would call that like a really low form of reality warping, right? Because if his Bankai touches something, she can just make it into something else, right? His eyes were dead. His eyes were completely removed from his skull, and she fixed them. Not only did she fix his eyes, she was also able to create a hole in this nigga Askin's gift ball, which wasn't supposed to be done, right? It wasn't supposed to be possible. And because he created that hole in the wall, Grimmjow was able to come in and finish off this nigga Askin, because Kisuke was just completely fucked. Apparently, though Benihime could restructure anything, they didn't think to have her restructure his organs so that he was no longer suffering from the poison of the gift ball. But whatever. Had he used his Bankai against anyone else, it wouldn't have been a fight. And apparently he doesn't like to use his Bankai. It's supposed to be his last resort, which is the excuse they always come up with when your Bankai is too strong. But that's Kisuke. Next we got Oetsu. So Oetsu, he was the one who created the Zanpakuto, and he was in the Zero Division like these three clowns, but he actually did something, right? So Oetsu, in his fucking regular form, because he doesn't have a Bankai apparently, nor does he have a Shikai apparently. You would think he did, but apparently he doesn't. He's just a guy with a sword who's really, 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 really fast. He one-shotted every single member of the Stern Lictor. He one-shotted Gerard, he one-shot Lily, he one-shotted Pernitas, he one-shot Askin. Well, he didn't one-shot Askin. Askin somehow managed to avoid his strike. And then because of Askin's ability, he actually managed to get the upper hand on Oetsu. But because of the Pompadour, whom was a direct counter to Askin, Oetsu was able to finish him off. Now, even though Oetsu managed to kill all of these guys, it didn't matter, because Juha is just that broken. So Wak basically brought all of them back to life, and then he made them stronger than they were before, because he can just do that. And then Lily pretty much killed Oetsu after that. It was really unfair. But they didn't want the Zero Division to solve the problem. Again, they introduce strong characters, they show them off, but we know they're going to lose because they don't want these characters to be the ones to save the day. So what is the point of having them fight anyway? Just to like make them look strong and then make them look weak. But Oetsu is probably the best swordsman in Bleach. I mean, he's the original swordsman, so it's safe to assume he's the best. Next we got Haschwalth. Haschwalth was Juha's right hand man. Apparently he was his other half. When he was asleep, Haschwalth would gain the almighty, whatever. Haschwalth's strength was the balance. He would balance the scales. Anything that happened, he made sure that it got an equal return. Like, that's how they described it. He only actually fought Uryu, and he fucking demolished him. It wasn't even close. It was actually like really bad what he did to Uryu. It was really bad. And I truly think if Haschwalth was allowed to show off, he would have smoked everything that was behind him. His ability is really cheap, but it wasn't even just that his ability was cheap. His ability was cheap, and he also had a special item to go with his ability. So his ability, like I said, was the balance. He could balance the scales. That was literally what he did. So, for example, if he was to experience any sort of misfortune, then whoever inflicted that misfortune on him would receive an equal share of that misfortune so that the scales would be balanced. And if the person was receiving fortune, then Hashwat would receive an equal share of their fortune. Basically, things would go back to zero. That was his ability. So if you hurt him, no matter how much you hurt him, he could turn some of the injury back onto you, right? Now, his special item helped him overcome the loophole in his ability. And he had a shield. I forgot what it was called, but it was basically the shield of balance. So the shield would absorb all misfortune and redirect it to its target, right? Basically meaning that he wasn't balancing the scales. He was constantly tipping them in his favor. So whenever he took damage, because Uryu, he beat the shit out of Uryu, right? Then Uryu used his ability. His ability was the antithesis. His shrift was also A. So he used the antithesis to reverse anything that happened between two targets, right? So because it was just him and Hashwat fucked him up, beat him near death, and then Uryu used his ability to reverse everything. So all of his wounds were put onto Hashwat, and all of Hashwat's wounds, which were none, were put onto Uryu. So that was basically how he planned to win that fight. But then Hashwat used his ability, which was the balance. So because Uryu had completely reversed the situation, Hashwat balanced the situation to where they were both hurt, right? But then because of his shield, which absorbs and redirects all misfortune, he didn't actually receive any misfortune. It all went into the shield and went back to Uryu. So basically Uryu went, it was basically just back to square one. Basically. Uryu reversed the situation, Hashwat reversed it back. Now if Hashwat doesn't have his shield, then he still takes damage. He just shares the pain with you, right? But with the shield, he takes no damage, so you can't beat him as long as he has that shield. You just can't. You have to break the shield, and I don't even know if you could do that. Like, they didn't make it seem like anyone could even threaten Hashwat. It's terrible. Next, we got Yamamoto, former Captain Commander of the 13th Squads. Apparently, he was the first Soul Reaper. That's how his original bio was written. That he was the first Soul Reaper, and he is apparently the strongest Soul Reaper that there has been, and there hasn't been anyone close to him, apparently. No one at all. Now, Yamamoto fought a couple of times in the series, but he, his only fight that mattered was when he fought Juha. He finally used his Bankai. His Bankai was really cheap. He basically has 4 forms of his Bankai. Well, I don't know if you call it 4 forms. His Bankai has 4 phases, I guess you should say. So he has the strongest fire-based Zanpakuto that has ever existed. And his Bankai is so strong that when he releases it, he starts to burn down Soul Society. Everything starts to evaporate because his fire is apparently equivalent to the sun. That's how they described it. Apparently his flame is equivalent to the sun. I don't know how that, how you create characters that can stand up to that. But yeah. So his Bankai is probably, outside of Shinsui, his Bankai is probably the most broken. Right? Easily. Because I don't really see how you survive his Bankai without having some absurd ability. His first is that he concentrates all his flames on the edge of his sword, right? So the edge of his sword is literally the sun. If he swings, he burns away anything that is in his way, anything. His second stance is he covers himself in the flames of the sun, so nothing can reach him because of the flame armor. Everything burns before it gets to him. Everything burns. His third stance is the 10,000 corpses, or rather the 10,000 corpses created by his blade. So the 10,000 lives that he took, actually it was more than 10,000. It was something like 10 million. It was a really bloated number that just didn't make sense. But he basically summons a bunch of fucking skeletal zombies. They have swords, they are burning, and they are real. And when they grab you, they pretty much hold you in place. And if those don't fucking overwhelm you and just kill you, if you manage to overcome that, then his final stance is like some sort of Omni Slash, where it's basically his first stance, but I guess you could say his first stance in its strongest form, because basically no matter what you are, he can cut you and just burn you away. That was how he ended up killing Juha. But it turned out that the whole time it wasn't Juha that he was fighting, it was fucking Royd. Which, like, when they explain how Lloyd and Royd's abilities work, then it doesn't make sense when you see how it worked out, because one of the fucking Stern Ritter that Kenpachi had killed on his way to Juha was Lloyd. Now, Lloyd and Royd, they were apparently twins when they did the fucking explanation on how Royd's ability worked. But Lloyd's name was Lloyd Royd. It was like, these were 2 chapters, right? The first chapter they showed Lloyd, and then when Yamamoto finished smoking Royd, they showed him. Royd with an R, Lloyd with an L. These niggas were apparently twins, but they were also apparently the same person. Anyway, lastly, we have Ichigo in Triple S. So it's implied that Ichigo is the strongest thing that anyone in Soul Society has ever seen by the final arc. It's implied. Right now, the reason why he's not in the bullshit tier is because the only reason why the bullshit tier exists is because these characters have abilities that don't make sense. It's funny how this fucking tier list started going way longer than I thought it would. God damn it. I'm really bad at keeping these short because I keep explaining everything in such depth. But yeah, Ichigo is the main character. He has literally every ability, every power source that you can have. He has human power, he has Shinigami power, he has Quincy power, and he has Hollow power. He is the mutt. He is the apex of existence, basically. And yeah, there's not much to say about Ichigo. You know, he's the main character. You know, he is arguably stronger than everyone that is in the series. You know, outside of the bullshit characters, which he would probably find a way around. You know, his abilities are really simple, and he never actually showed all of his new abilities that he had gotten when he had finished training with the Zero Division. He got the real Zangetsu. He learned his real Bankai. Like, he was way different. There was a point where he was fighting 8 Stern Ritter, and none of them could land a hit on him. They had him completely surrounded, and none of them could land a hit on him. None of them. And the little bit of his power that he did show was when he fought Candace, and he smoked her. But for some reason, he didn't want to kill her. You know, because Ichigo, he's not really into killing. He didn't want to kill Candace. If he did, he would have taken her out in one hit. But yeah, writing. Anyway, like I said, it's implied that he is way stronger than everybody else. He's the only one who was able to fight Juha without getting completely destroyed, even though he ended up losing the first time they fought. He still did the best against him. And again, he's the main character. Now for the bullshit tier. Characters who have abilities that don't make sense. And they lost or won, but it was only because they needed to, and it was very specific circumstances in which they did. So first off, we got Grammy. So Grammy was a quote-unquote the strongest Stern Ritter. His ability, his shrift was eye. His ability was imagination. Anything he can imagine, he can make real. Anything. He was a low-level reality warper. Reality warping, in my opinion, doesn't belong in anime because there's no answer to it unless you can also warp reality. But I digress. So he fought Kenpachi. He lost to Kenpachi because this is a terribly written story. But his ability should not have been one that was around in the first place, and it shouldn't have been one that should have been easily defeated. Because he lost to Kenpachi, and the way he lost to Kenpachi was because he imagined Kenpachi's strength, and it was more than he could bear. And he goes, "Oh no, I imagine your strength perfectly, but only a monster like you could contain your own power." Yeah, whatever. Anyway, all he had to do was just imagine himself a body that could maintain Kenpachi's power. That was literally what he had to do. He was doing some cool things, like he dropped a meteorite. That was basic. It was cool, but it was still basic. Like, if you have the power of imagination, you can literally do anything. Feel me? Your power is only limited by what you can imagine. And he lost to a nigga that just slashes things. Apparently the sword is mightier than the pen. But it's still a bullshit ability, because if it was used properly, he doesn't lose to anyone. I don't care who you are. Because no matter what you do to him, he can just imagine that it didn't happen. No matter how strong you are, he can just imagine that you don't exist. He can imagine that he's stronger than you. He can imagine that you're weak. And then you will be. And then what made his ability so cheap was that it didn't, like, it became most effective when you also, the person he used it on, when you also believed in what he was saying. That's when his ability really started to shine. But other than that, that was really all he did. That was all he needed to do. He never had to take his hands out of his pockets. He never had to use his hands because he didn't need them. Next, we got Shinsui. So Shinsui, he was the captain of the 8th Division. 9th Division. I got that right the first time. 8th Division. And he became the captain commander after Yamamoto got killed by Juha. So his Shikai makes child's games reality. So he's also a low-level reality warper. So he turns children games into reality. And of course he turns them into games of death. Now the games that he uses are of course Japanese children's games, so you might not recognize them. But for example, he would basically use games that you played as a kid, like tag, hide and seek, red light, green light, things like that. Things where all you need is one other human to play. You don't actually need any like materials or anything like that. You know, children's games. He turns those into reality. And if you don't know the rules of the game, which of course you don't have to worry because he'll tell you. But if you don't know the rules of the game, then you'll die without even knowing what's going on. You know, because you'll be trying to hit him and it won't work. You'll be trying to catch him and it won't work. He'll be like moving faster than he should be able to move, and he'll be doing things that he wouldn't, like hiding in shadows and things like that, jumping out your shadow, stabbing your shadow, and then you taking damage, like all types of wild shit. His Bankai though, so his Bankai was completely different from everyone else in the series Bankai. His Bankai wasn't, his sword didn't transform. His Bankai wasn't like a transformation of his sword. His Bankai was a concept. So his Shikai makes child's games real. His Bankai is a play that you have no choice but to participate in, right? So think of it as a concept. It's not actually an attack. It's not actually real, but it is real, you know? So his Bankai catches anyone in the range, anyone, right? Which is why he never used it, because if he were to use it, he would hurt everyone else unintentionally. Because you have to participate in the play if he activates his Bankai. He also has to participate in the play, right? So when he releases his Bankai is so powerful that his sword comes to life, right? So everybody's Zanpakuto has a form. His sword actually comes to life, and she becomes real. She moves around, she interacts with him, all of that. His sword doesn't actually transform. I truly think that's the highest form of Bankai. When your sword doesn't transform, it comes out, you know? So there are 4 acts to his play. And his play is about a woman. No, it's a tragedy. Right. So it's a tragedy, a romantic tragedy. So the first act of his play is really pissed that I couldn't remember that shit on the spot. Right. So the first act of his play is that you and he share the same wounds. Right, so whatever wounds he has, he inflicts on you. I think he also takes on your wounds. Yeah. So whatever wounds you have, he'll take, and whatever wounds he has, you take. Right, pretty simple. So it's, you know, you share the same wounds. So when he used it, it was the most effective because he used it against someone who didn't have any injuries. So the person he used it on took all of his pain, and he didn't have to take any of their pain because, you know, they weren't feeling any. Now, funny thing is that when he released his Bankai, everyone in the palace could feel it. Everyone. And you could think of the palace as like at the very least the size of a city. You know, so think of it as everybody in New York City would feel his Bankai if he released it. They wouldn't be caught in it unless they were actually in the effective range, but they would still feel it, right? Because it's the theater suicide. So the second act is he infects you with an incurable disease. Now, if that doesn't kill you, which it should, but if that doesn't kill you, then the third act is he puts you and he underwater, complete and total submersion, and there is no getting out of it. You can't swim to the top. You could try, but you won't actually get to the top. And if you don't drown, then the fourth act is he cuts your head off. But he doesn't do it with a sword. He basically charges up his Retsu. He kind of just like slices his hand across the fucking space, and your head gets cut off. But it's not like instant decapitation. It's dramatic. Feel me? So like your head will get cut off, and then your head will start to split, and then the space between your neck and your shoulders will explode. So it's not enough that your head gets cut off, but you're gonna explode too. He's gonna make sure there's nothing left of you. Now, the reason he doesn't use this is because, again, it affects everyone in the range, himself included. Now, the finer aspects of it don't affect him. Like, he won't get infected with the disease, and his head won't get cut off when he performs the fourth act. But I think that's just because he knows how to not succumb to it, because he really didn't want to use his Bankai. He made it seem like he really didn't want to use it. But there is no surviving that Bankai. Now, the person he fought, which is the person right in front of him, which is the person he used the Bankai on, was Lily. Now, Lily survived, but technically Lily didn't survive. He came back to life because he did die, but just by sheer willpower, he came back to life, and he came back to life stronger. Now, Lily is in the bullshit tier because Lily is the most, after Gerard, Lily is the most unfair character that has existed that I've seen. Now, Lily's shrift was X. He was the X-axis. His original ability was pretty simple. He could pierce through anything with his, he has a gun. He could pierce through anything. That's Quincy. Quincy's archers, if you didn't know. But he could pierce through anything, right? So his bow was like a sniper rifle. He looked through the scope, and whatever he saw, it didn't matter what was between him. If he could see you through the scope, it didn't matter what was between y'all. The bullet was going through you, and it wasn't actually traveling. Feel me? It would just be boom, you got shot. So there wasn't really it's not really something you can avoid, So when he releases Vol's thing, he completely transforms, right? All right, let me not forget, before we even get to his Vol's thing. Now, he has one of his eyes closed, and they make it seem like his eye has to stay closed. He has a tattoo over it and everything. It's pretty wicked. Now, apparently, when he opens his eye, which he can only do for about a blink's worth of time, and he can only do 3 times, how they say it originally. When he opens his eye, everything passes through him, and he passes through everything. Basically meaning he becomes intangible. It's basically made for defense. He becomes intangible, you can't kill him. Now, if he opens his eye 3 times, right, then apparently the time limit. Now, if he opens his eye 3 times in the same fight, the time limit, which he just explained, is removed. So he can keep his eye open for the whole fight. So it's just like, what? So what was the point of the time limit then? And he's like, there's no way I would have to open my eye 3 times in the same fight. And it's like, wait, how is that fair? So if you manage to get your eye open before I hit you, then my attack is going to pass through you, and then you can just turn around and hit me. Yeah. So if he opens his eye 3 times, then he gets to keep it open, right? But if he actually does open it the 3rd time, then he's going to release his Vol's thing. Now, his Vol's thing completely transforms him into some ugly ass cocoon looking shit. Like, he looks like a completely different person. It's fucking terrible. Now, he has the same abilities. He just has more guns. Because everybody's Vol's thing, they look like angels, so they all get wings, right? Because they're supposed to be angels, while Shinigami is supposed to be demons, because Shinigami are soul Grim Reapers. They're Soul Reapers. So while Shinigamis live in darkness, Quincy is supposed to live in light. So all Quincy's, when they go into their Vol's thing, they look like angels, ugly ass angels, but they look like angels. So he looks like a cocoon. He has wings. His hat is gone, so he just got like a little buzz cut. He looks fucking stupid. And basically, he just has, like I said, more guns. So instead of shooting 1, because he could only shoot 1 before, he can shoot like 9. Big whoop. Now, when Shinsui used his Bankai and when Shinsui killed him, he came back as this really fucking ugly ass owl looking shit, right? So he came back as an owl, and then he had a halo over his head for some reason. And then once he came back as the owl, shout outs to the trumpet, he was no longer the same person. Apparently he became a god, a messenger of God, right? So he was divine, like he was actually divine. There's no explanation as to how it happened. He just refused to die when he was killed, so that's how he came back. He came back as a demigod, basically. And there was no dealing with him after that. So the way they killed him was extremely specific. They got Nanao, who has a sword that only works against gods, and the sword turns back the god's power on itself. That was how they ended up knocking him off. And even that didn't kill him. He was still alive after that. He basically just split off into a bunch of smaller pieces. He lost his halo, but all he did was split off into a bunch of smaller pieces. So he basically had 3 extra lives. One of those lives, unless you have that sword that she had, you won't be taking away because the halo keeps him from dying. And he lost his abilities as a Quincy. All he was doing was just vaporizing shit with light. It like, there was no explanation for it. It didn't make any sense. He just kept coming back. So if anyone other than Shinsui was to fight him, they don't kill him. Like, Oetsu killed him, but then he comes back to life, and he does all of this shit against Shinsui. It's like, it was so inconsistent that I had to call it bullshit. I had to. And Gerard is the same as Lily, right? So Gerard's shrift is M for the miracle. His ability is exactly how it sounds. He can make miracles occur, right? So his ability starts off pretty simple. He has to lose the fight. He has to be losing. He starts off really, really weak because of the nature of his ability. So if you manage to beat him, right, then in order for him to beat you, you would call it a miracle. Like, in order for him to win, he would need a miracle. So guess what? He's going to get that miracle. Whatever it may entail, he's going to get it. Whether that makes him stronger than you, whether that makes him faster than you, doesn't matter. Right? Now, the original nature of his ability is that he converts damage into power. So all the damage that he takes, as long as he doesn't die, he'll recover from it, and then he'll be stronger for it. And his body grows. I don't know why, but his body grows. So he becomes a giant. He has a sword and he has a shield. His shield can't be broken. Like, it's just, it can't be. And his sword can be broken, right? But his sword is basically the sword of the people. Hofnung, the blade of the people. Whenever you chip the sword, you take damage. And the sword will chip. It will. It won't get destroyed. It won't break. But it will chip, and you'll take damage every time you chip his blade. So it's like, if you fight him with a sword, you're going to take damage every time y'all clash blades. It's a hard counter. And not to mention, apparently as long as people exist, he'll always have power, and he just won't be able to die. He'll heal whatever damage you do to him, no matter what it is, and his body will just continue to grow larger and larger, and he'll keep getting stronger. So Kenpachi popped out. Kenpachi managed to cut him up, right? Kenpachi actually managed to kill him. He cut him completely in two. Vertically in two. He cut his heart, he cut his brain. He split both of these things, and the nigga came back to life. He released his Volstang, his power got amplified to the max, and he became something that could not be killed. His power was matching Juhai's power. So what does that mean? That means that no matter what you do to him, he won't die from it. He'll keep getting stronger with no limit, and if you do somehow manage to overcome him, then he has an install. He'll use his install, and then you literally won't be able to kill him. He'll become a god. Everything you do to him, he'll take it, he'll get stronger for it. It took, who was fighting him by the end? By the time he had released his Volstang, Kenpachi, Byakuya, Renji, Toshiro, and Rukia. It took all of these characters just to hold him in check because they could not actually beat him. And they said that his power was at the same level as Juhai's. How does it make sense? How is it fair that a character will just randomly always have the best possible scenario happen for him because of his ability? And even without his ability, his natural skill is to absorb damage, get stronger from it, and heal off of it, and like grow in size. So eventually he'll be too big for you to fight. He was too big for everyone else to hurt, except for Kenpachi, because Kenpachi is a monstrous strength. But even Kenpachi wasn't able to hurt him anymore once he had released his Volstang, and he was just shitting on these niggas for fun. So after he actually would have got past them, there would have been nobody else to fight him, and it took 5 niggas that were at least double S to fight him. Come on, son. How did he end up dying? because Juha did the rapture one more time, and he ended up using it on these niggas this time. He used it on Gerard. He used it on well, Askin was already dead. He used it on Gerard. He used it on Hashwell, and he took their powers away, and they ended up dying. But that was the only way that they were going down. If Hashwell would have went up the stairs after he was done with Uryu, it would have been free smoke. I would have loved to have seen that. That would have actually been good writing. But of course, we didn't see that. Next, we got Aizen. So Aizen is the original main villain before Juha. Aizen is physically superior to every character in the series. They say this over and over again. He is just stronger and faster than everyone. But that doesn't matter. The reason why he's in the bullshit tier is for one reason and one reason only. The thing that makes him so dangerous, the thing that has always made him dangerous. Aizen's Shikai is Kyoko. So his blade is Kyoka Suigetsu. And his Shikai, which is all we ever get to see. We never get to see his Bankai. But his Shikai lets him freely control the 5 senses. It is absolute hypnosis. Freely, he controls vision, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. All of these things he controls. The only condition is that you have to see him release his sword. If he releases his sword in front of you, nothing's going to happen. His sword's not going to change. But from that moment, for like until you die, or until he dies, or until he lets you out, you are under his control. Like, he doesn't control you, but he controls what you see. He controls what you perceive. He controls what you hear. He controls what you taste. He controls what you smell. He can freely control all of these things. And it doesn't just work on one person. And there's no limit to how many people he can use it on. And he can make everyone see something specific. Like, it is absolute hypnosis. It's exactly how it sounds. How the fuck is that fair? How is that fair? Like, it's just there's no overpowering that ability. It doesn't have a weakness. Oh right, it does have a weakness. If you touch his sword, if you manage to touch his sword, then you can see through the illusion. That's the only weakness. And the only person in the series who hadn't seen his sword was Ichigo. So Ichigo was the only person his sword didn't work on. So Ichigo was the only one who could beat him. But Ichigo had to train for 2 years in an alternate dimension to beat him. Granted, he would have had to have done that anyway, because Aizen was far above him in like ability-wise. Aizen was so far above him, it wasn't even close. But Ichigo was the only one who ever stood a chance at beating him, and still that holds. Because he can freely control the 5 senses. Like, do I need to say anything else? No, I don't. Lastly, we got Ichibe. So Ichibe was the captain of the Zero Division, because even they have a captain. Now, after Yamamoto and Ichigo, Ichibe is the strongest Shinigami. His ability is a bit complex, but at the same time, it's pretty simple. He can remove the names. He can name things. He can give and take names. Now, there's power in a name. They say that in a lot of series. There's power in a name. He can give and take names freely. He can give and take names. It's actually, like, when you see it in action, it's really cheap, right? So basically, his Zanpakuto isn't a blade. It's well, his Bankai is a blade. His Shikai is a paintbrush. If he touches you with the ink, no matter, like, whatever he touches is under his under the effects of his ability. So if he touched, like, for example, he had hit Juha's arm, and then he took the name of his arm away, and he couldn't use his arm anymore because it wasn't an arm. It was what was formerly known as an arm. So because he took away its name, he took away its power, right? So he was responsible for naming everything in Soul Society. He named Zanpakutos, I think. He came up with the name Shikai and Bankai, I think, too. So of course he had a Bankai. His Bankai was fucking cheap. His power was also darkness, right? So as well as being able to give and take names, he had like this really fucking, like, he had these really cheap skills where he would just make like these giant Buddha hands and these giant Buddha feet, and they would just crush you for free. He would just send you flying 100 feet, right? Like, it wouldn't actually hurt. He would just send you hurtling, and you couldn't stop until you reached the distance that he sent you. And then if he could catch up to you and then send you back another 100 feet. right? So then he had his final technique that he used on Juha. Of course, it didn't work on Juha, where he erases you from existence, basically. Like, he just smothers you in darkness until you don't exist anymore. He takes everything away from you. He takes away your senses. He takes away your name. He takes away your memories. He just takes everything from you, right? And because he can give and take names, he can just write a name in the air, and suddenly whatever he wrote, that will exist in that space. So he had wrote Seal, for example, to stop Juha from moving forward, and he couldn't move forward because the seal was there. He had took Juha's name, and he took his, and because he took his name, he wasn't able to use any of his abilities because he had took his voice away. Because he told him, he's like, yo, you keep saying my name, your throat gonna get crushed. He kept saying his name, so he took his voice away. Because he couldn't speak, he couldn't say any abilities. But Juha trumps everything. Right? So if anybody else would have fought Ichibe, even Aizen, they would have lost to him. Because all he has to do is take away your name. You lose all of your power after that. And you don't get your name back. Like, it's gone forever. So basically, regardless of Aizen's ability, if Ichibe takes away the name of his blade, then he can't use it anymore. His Shikai just stops working. If he was to fight Lily and Lily was doing all of that crazy shit, if he was to take away Lily's name, he would have lost all of that power that he had, and he would have just been just a person standing there, the person formerly known as Lily, and then he would just cut him down. If Shunsui uses his Bankai on Ichibe, Ichibe just takes away his name. Like, he doesn't have to do anything but take your name from you, and you lose everything about yourself. You can't use your abilities. You don't remember who you are. You can't talk. And then he just says, all right, cool. He doesn't even have to kill you after that because you're basically already dead. An ability sounds really simple, but it's actually really complex. He can do more than that, but that's basically the point of his ability, is that he can take things away. He can give and take names, which means he can give and take power. It was funny. Juha killed everyone in the Zero Division, right? He killed Ichibe too, but Ichibe's immortal because as long as his name exists, he can come back to life. He just needs someone to say his name. So Ichigo made it to the palace. He said his name out loud, and then he came back to life. He took some of Ichigo's power and used it to come back to life. Now, they didn't say if Ichigo got any of that power back, but he took enough power from Ichigo to come back to life, and Ichigo was still running around getting ready to fight Juha. Feel me? So it makes you think that Ichigo would be able to overpower him, maybe. But I don't know. He was the one who trained him to get that strong. He could take his name away. But then again, we got Juha. Like I said, he just... So Juhabak has omniscience as well as omnipotence. He is, like, for all intents and purposes, he is God. Not a God. He is God. For all intents and purposes. But he is, he's effectively God. So his original ability is that he can split his soul pretty much indefinitely, and he can give pieces of his soul to others, and whatever misfortune is befalling them at the time, it'll be reversed, right? So whatever is going wrong, he'll fix it. But it comes with a price, and that price is that he cuts your lifespan. So when you die, the piece of his soul that he gave you goes back to him. But when it goes back to him, he absorbs everything about you into himself, right? So he was splitting his soul up amongst a bunch of people. And when all of those people started dying off, he got all of their knowledge, their experience, their power, like anything that they knew, he knew. Anything that they could do, he could do. So once he figured out that he had this ability, he learned how to give and take powers. Like he was just giving people powers, right? And they would get powers. He gave all the Stern Ridders their powers, and then he just took it all back at once, right? So that was his original ability. Now that ability itself was overwhelming everyone. That alone was overwhelming everyone. But then he managed to get another ability. Now, because he can absorb power infinitely, he absorbed the Soul King, which is quote unquote God. He absorbed Mimihage's bum ass, and that made him even stronger. But even before he absorbed the Soul King, he had another ability, An ability that apparently had a long cooldown time. And it was the Almighty. Everyone's favorite. If you know Wok, then you know the Almighty. Basically, he can see. Literally see. Anything and everything that can and will happen. Which is omniscience. Like that's literally omniscience. But he only has it one way. He can't see into the past. He can only see into the future. So I guess it's not complete omniscience, but it's close enough. Because being able to see into the past wasn't that important. But he can see into the future. He can see all futures. He sees all possibilities that can and will happen. And not only can he see them, but he has the power to change them. He can just change it. If he sees a future he doesn't like, he can just change it and remove the possibility of it happening. And that's it. That's it. There's no reversing that. That is so fucking cheap. It's like, what? How does that make sense to anyone? How does that ability make sense? That is a god level ability, right? He can see the future. All futures. It's not just one future that he can see. If you manage to figure something out, or if some random thing might happen that could change the possibility of what he saw happening, he'll see that too. He'll see the cause and he'll see the effect. And if he doesn't like it, he can freely change it. He'll just be like, all right, I don't like this future. So he was fighting Ichigo, right? He waited for Ichigo to use his Bankai. I don't know why he waited so long, but he waited for Ichigo to use his Bankai. The minute Ichigo used his Bankai, it broke. He didn't actually touch him, but his Bankai broke. And it was just like, oh yeah, so I just created a future. I just changed the future. And I made it so that your Bankai broke as soon as you used it. It was really simple. And like, that was pretty much all she wrote. And it was just like, yo, what? So not only is he like physically superior to everyone, right? Not only does he have the physical power of a god, because he absorbed the Soul King. He himself was already really powerful after he had absorbed all of the powers from the Stern Ritter. And then he absorbed the powers from the Stern Lictor. And he got even stronger. And then he also absorbed Ichigo's power when they fought. So all of that, on top of the fact that he had stolen Yamamoto's Bankai. He never used it, but he stole it. And he said he was the only one strong enough to steal Yamamoto's Bankai, which is the only reason why Yamamoto's Bankai hadn't gotten stolen before that. You put all of that together with the fact that he can see and freely change any and all possible futures. This is literally someone who does not lose a fight no matter who he fights. Now, he ended up losing through a combination of Ichigo, Aizen, Renji, and Uryu. But it was extremely specific conditions that he lost under. Now, the funny thing is, he saw himself dying because he can see the future. He sees all futures. He saw himself die. He saw how he died. He knew he was going to lose. It was hilarious, actually. It was ironic how he saw every possible future and he could freely change it, but he couldn't change his own death. It was ironic, truly. But you can't tell me he's not in his own tier. You can't tell me that he doesn't break every rule that you've heard of in anime. It's like, oh, we finally found a way to beat him. No, you didn't. The way they beat him, again, was very specific. They had an arrow. They had an arrowhead that was made from a substance that is created in someone's body after they die from his ability. And when the arrow hits him, it turns off all of his abilities. For a moment. They don't tell you, they don't say exactly how long a moment is. Apparently the moment was long enough for Ichigo to cut him down. But it turns off all his abilities for a moment, and that is the only window in which he can lose. This moment, of course, being like, you would assume is less than 60 seconds. It's just a moment to where he can't see the future, so he can't change it. So he can't actually dodge your hit, and he loses his omnipotence. He loses everything. He just becomes a normal human being who can be killed like any other human being for a moment. Now, this arrow can't be created unless you died from his ability. So if he never kills you with his ability, this arrow doesn't exist. Feel me? So it's like these were extremely specific conditions. Aizen somehow managed to control his perception for a moment, and he made him think that who he saw was Ichigo, but who he saw was actually Aizen. And it was just like, what? Now, that doesn't work all the time. It only worked in that moment because he was so confident and he was so convinced that he had already won. And he didn't think that Aizen would be strong enough to be able to control his senses for that long. But he was. He basically caught him with his guard down. Had he not let his guard down, that doesn't happen. If he was smart, he kills Aizen from the start. He just gets rid of him. He gets rid of any and all threats. Aizen was on the list of special war potential. The way he got rid of every other threat, he annihilated Ichibe. He didn't give him a chance because he knew Ichibe was a threat to him. He annihilated him. He knew Ichigo was a threat to him. He annihilated him. He knew Yamamoto was a threat. He annihilated him. But he doesn't kill Aizen. He let Aizen live because he didn't think Aizen would be a threat, because he figured, oh yeah, you just strapped in that chair, you ain't never getting out. It's funny, really. But that is our Bleach tier list explained. So yeah, this is a long ass video. I apologize. These tier list videos, they just, I get too involved and I end up explaining things for too long. But if you did manage to watch this whole thing, I definitely appreciate it. I definitely appreciate it if you watched the whole video. If you into Bleach, if you enjoyed the tier list, leave it a like. Got anything to say, hit the comment section, and subscribe if you are interested in any of this stuff at all. And yeah, with all that being said, it's your man Danger Dan signing off. Now, before reminding you, it's a dangerous world out there, but so are you.